Welcome to Steve's presentation on the 6th of June 2013. Steve will now give his account on how he thinks the Western global economies are performing.
Thank you, Tony. I want you to remember today, because you first heard it from me, we are in a sustained recovery and good times are ahead. Okay, I am going to put up a caption, and this is how I truly view the future in the Western economies. How did that picture get there? Okay, Tracy, let's see if we can get the correct slide up on the screen. Look at that. The UK economy is firing on all 4 cylinders.
Steve, the economy is firing on the same amount of cylinders as you are.
What do you mean by that?
Go figure.
George, don't be so hard on Steve. When I go out on the lash, the pubs are always full. My mates are partying like there is no tomorrow.
Tracy, I wish I had a lower IQ, so that I could enjoy your company.
Hey George, there was no need for that.
Steve, I could agree with you, but we would both be wrong.
Okay George, have a look at the next slide. How can you argue with this news? Just look how positive it is. In big letters it says, economy is on the road to recovery.
You have to admit, George, the headline news so far have been positive.
Also George, have a look at this. Now then, if these headlines cannot convince you, nothing will.
Guess what I am going to say?
I guess you are going to agree with me now that you have seen the overwhelming evidence.
Guess again.
George, you are so stubborn. You cannot accept that we are in recovery.
Have a look at the next slide. Want to know the truth? Well, here it is. Who put that slide in there? It's not funny.
It's true though.
Steve, I have been listening very carefully to you, and I have come to the conclusion you are living in cloud cuckoo land. The mainstream media are not focusing on the truly awful conditions many people in the Western economies are facing. In Greece, my family suffered dreadful poverty. Every day it is getting worse for the people.
I notice in your presentation, you have chosen all your material from the mainstream media. Have you done any independent research?
No. I trust the news in the mainstream media. The mainstream media reports the facts, and looking at the facts, there is overwhelming evidence that we are on the road to recover.
Steve, I have evidence that is overwhelming evidence that we are heading for the greatest depression there is. The debt ceiling issue has not been addressed. It stands at $16.4 trillion. The current debt on the 6th of June 2013 is $16.8 trillion and rising at a rate of $37,948 per second. Quantitative easing continues at $85 billion per month. That is $32,256 per second. Governments and banks have been allowed to borrow unsustainable money from the future.
George, you worry too much. At least by borrowing this money, we have seen a recovery. Surely that is what you want.
Of course I want a recovery, but you cannot get a real recovery based on unsustainable debt. Did you know that the debt ceiling issue should have been faced in March of this year?
No.
Did you know it was then deferred to May the 18th of this year?
No.
Did you know it was then deferred again to June of this year?
No.
Did you know it has been deferred to Labor Day in September?
No.
Do you know what day of the week it is?
Are you trying to be funny, George? It's
Trust me, Steve, I have done my research, and the conclusion I have reached is completely at odds with the mainstream media. I shall tell you what's going to happen. Stocks will fall, gold will rise, the dollar index will plummet, and the gap between the rich and poor will widen. Unstable work patterns and poor wages will be the norm as the multinational corporations pick and choose their labor in a global market.
I disagree with you. Just have a look at this article. Gold is going to head towards $1,000.
The only way gold would head towards $1,000 would to stop quantitative easing, but the problem is, we cannot stop it now, otherwise the economy would collapse. And guess what?
What?
We cannot continue with quantitative easing because it would cause a catastrophic collapse in the future.
George, you were wrong. Quantitative easing has produced growth. I conclude my presentation by betting that I am right and that the recovery will be sustained.
Steve, it will be the easiest bet that I shall win.